Okay, well, today we're going to continue Be'ezrat Hashem in Hilchot Shabbat. We're actually coming to the final lessons of Hilchot Shabbat from the Tzurba Rabbanan. We're middle of the halachot of creating an Eruv, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the Tzurat HaPetach. We talked about the doors that are closed, how to make something that's a Rishus HaRabim or a kamerlit into a Rishus HaYochid, how to put up the strings. We talked about all these other things, how to classify something not as a Rishus HaRabim. But there is another din, a very important halacha that people know, but not everyone knows. And it's a halacha that if you don't have this in place, whatever you did with the Tzurat HaPetach, whatever you did with the Eruv that you put up, it won't work if this is not a part of it. And what is this? This is Eruv Chatzeirot. Yeah. This is making an Eruv Chatzeirot.
You know what? I heard this just last week. I'm learning in the morning. And what do you mean?
Okay.
So without Eruv Chatzeirot,
that's right.
Like you put for the community, so the Eruv is just the wires.
That's right.
That's it.
In order to make the Eruv work, you have to have Eruv Chatzeirot. To complete. Now, what is this? What is Eruv Chatzeirot? We're going to see.
Matzah, a box of matzah.
That's right. A box of matzahs.
Some box of matzah באיזשהו מקום, בשכונה.
There's a question whether it has to be in the house or in the shul.
We have it in the shul. We
in Young Israel or Aguda has it?
Aguda, we have a box of matzah over there for Eruv Chatzeirot, and this is for the whole community.
Good.
כלומר שהמצה הזאת, מישהו, כאילו מישהו רעב, צריך, מה אמור, אז הוא...
It's that we're all one mishpacha. We all have one food. That's the point, one mishpacha. Right. When we all become one mishpacha, one food, one family, now it's a real Reshut HaYachid. Otherwise, you would think maybe you get confused. So let's go through the sugya. We're on page 333. And it brings over here a Gemara in Masechet Eruvin. And the Gemara in Masechet Eruvin tells us, by the way, this is not just the Tzuras HaPesach. Even if you lived in an apartment building and there was no Eruv, you still have to make an Eruv Chatzeirot in order to walk around and carry stuff in the apartment building. In the building. We're going to see now. We're going to see the sugya. We're going to see that if there's no Eruv, Tzuras HaPesach, and there's no Eruv Chatzeirot for the whole community, and you want to carry in a apartment building, you need to make an Eruv Chatzeirot.
The building has a fence.
That's right. Even if it has a fence.
So none of the buildings have
because we usually have an Eruv around the community that we live in, and the Eruv Chatzeirot for the community works for the building also. Right. But if there is no Eruv around and there's no Eruv Chatzeirot for the whole community, then the building, if you want to carry in that building, you need to make an Eruv Chatzeirot. So let's
now about this matzah box. So everybody needs to know about it.
The Rambam says, we're going to see what the Rambam says. Let's see what the Rambam says.
It's possible.
Okay. Let's take a look at 20 source 1. They should know. The Rambam says the whole idea is for them to know. That's why the whole thing is done. But unfortunately, most people don't know.
But you see, you didn't know where it is.
I knew we had one. I didn't
know if it was Young Israel.
Why I thought it was Young Israel? I thought it was Young Israel because Young Israel is the most primary shul.
But you know what? Maybe Young Israel has.
They maybe have their own. Yeah.
Maybe they have their own. But I know for sure.
The Eruv works out of where? The actual Eruv.
You know, I didn't know that. I understand.
The Eruv works out of where? Who controls the Eruv? Young Israel or Aguda? Young Israel is in charge of them.
There is used to be Young Israel, but there is a guy from Aguda, Moshe Task. You heard about
I heard of him.
So he's a part of it, and there are a few people.
Okay.
Maybe somebody also from Young Israel. I'm not sure.
I always thought Young Israel was in charge of the Eruv, so that's why I thought, because they're the ones who always put the sign up, Eruv down. They're the ones always talking about the Eruv.
You know Rabbi Goldberg. Rabbi Goldberg, no? So I remember 40 years ago, when I moved here, I used to help him checking the roof all over.
Mitman does it, the electrician.
Going with the car, going to beach channel over there, close to the water,
making sure everything is up.
Exactly, checking to see there is no cut or something. 4 years ago.
Let's take a look at our first source. Who made this takana? Who made this thing to make Erev Chatzirot? It was Shlomo HaMelech. Over Yehuda, Omar Shmuel. B'sha'ah shetiken Shlomo Eruvin untilat Yadayim. Both making this Erev Chatzirot and Netilat Yadayim were made by Shlomo HaMelech. Yatzta bat kol v'amra. Bat kol came out and said, Beni im chamcham libecha yismach libi gamani. V'omer, and it said another pasuk, Chacham beni v'samach libi v'ashiva horfi davar. So the bat kol came out very pleased with the fact that Shlomo HaMelech made this takana of Erev Chatzirot. What is this? So go back to Masech Shabbos. We're in source 2 right now. And the Gemara says, Tan Rabbana Abba Rishiyos L'Shabbos, therefore Rishiyot L'Shabbat. We already spoke about them in the previous weeks. Now, Chatzirot Shel Rabim, U'Mavot She'enan Mefulashin, if you have courtyards of the public, where people are using, and you have alleyways that are not open on both sides, meaning they're semi-private. Yeah. Mevo, right. And the picture on page 335, you have one side open, one side closed, and the Chatzer is between the two houses. So in the times, right, so the times of the Talmud, the houses led to the Chatzer, a shared Chatzer. The Chatzer led to the Mevo, right, to the alleyway, and the alleyways led to the streets. Right. That's the way it was set up. Okay? So, says the Gemara, Chatzerot shel Rabim u'Mavot she'en muflashin ervu. If you made an Erev Chatzerot, mutarin, then you're allowed to carry there. Lo ervu, if you didn't make an Erev Chatzerot, then you cannot carry there. So here, according to this Gemara, if I walked out of my house and I'm in a Chatzer, you see that picture on page 335, and if I didn't make Erev Chatzerot, I cannot carry in this Chatzer, even though it's closed off by 3.5, almost 4 sides, I cannot carry there. I cannot carry in the mevo unless I made a shituf mevo. That's right. If it's a shared backyard, it's used by more than one family, okay, then you have to make an Erev Chatzerot. That's why in an apartment building, it's all closed, right? But it's multiple people living there. Right. Multiple families living there. Now you need Erev Chatzerot. Now, in your own house and in your own backyard, that's private. That's a reshut yachid, let it carry there. But anything that is somewhat public, okay, you have to make an Erev Chatzerot. The Rambam in the Hilchos Eruvin, the Rambam goes through the whole idea, and he goes here in Aleph, Chatzer sheyesh ba shchenim, you have their neighbors, harbe, kol echad behem, bebayit la'atzmo, din torahu, sheyu kulan mutarin litatel b'chol hachatzer, u'mebatim l'chatzer, mechatzer lebatim, mipnei she'kol hachatzer rishus yachid. Achas, and mutar l'talta b'kula. Listen, really it is a rishus yachid, says the Rambam. In Medin HaTorah, you're allowed to carry there. V'chein hadim b'Medina shemu kepes choyma gevoya asar tvachim sheyesh lo daltot v'ninelot b'layla shekul rishus yachid hi zehu din Torah. If you have a city that's surrounded by walls and there's doors that you lock at night, like we spoke about, right? You're allowed to walk there. You're allowed to carry there. This means from Shlomo HaMelech. Asur l'shchenim l'tatel b'rashut hayachid sheyesh ba chaluka b'duran ad she'aravu kol hashchenim kulan me'erev Shabbat, until everybody makes an erev before Shabbat. Echad chotzer ve'echad mavoi ve'echad hamedina. V'dvar zeh tekan Shlomo u'beitino hu. This is already from the time of Shlomo HaMelech. Why did Shlomo HaMelech make this up? I need to make an Erev Chatzeros. So Rosh Hashanah, it's closed up. Why make an Erev Chatzeros? Why? In order for people not to make a mistake. What would they make a mistake? So you could go through the Rambam says. The Rambam says that what? People are going to think this is a semi-public place. The Chatzar is semi-public, right? It's private, you're right, but I'm using it and my neighbor's using it. So it's semi-public. All the apartments are going into there. It's all semi-public. So they might think, since this is public, my house is private, I'm able to go in and out without anything doing, then maybe I can go from an actual Rosh Hashanah into an actual Rosh Rabim, and I can actually carry into there. Just like I'm carrying from my private house into a semi-public place. So you're going to get confused. And because of this, lefikach tikin shekol Rosh Hashanah shetechalek b'diyon, right? Because he's going to think everything is Rishus Rabbim. He's going to get confused. Therefore, anything that's mine, private, I'm going to go into a place that multiple people can use, also to do that. So the Shlomo HaMelech's whole idea was, I don't want people to come confused. People are walking here. Other families are going here. It's semi-public, and I can go from my house to here. So maybe I can go from this place to a real Reshut Rabim. Because of that, Shlomo HaMelech said, you have to make Erev Chatzeirot. Now, Umahu Erev Hazeh. What is this Erev, says the Rambam, and Vav on page 335. Hu shitarevu v'ma'achal echad shemanicha noto me'erev Shabbat kolomer shekulanu morvin v'ochal echad lekulanu ve'en kol echad mimenu holek reshut b'chavero el kshem sheyad kulo shava b'makom zeh shnishar lekulanu kach yad kulanu shava b'kol makom she'achas kol echad la'atzmai v'rei anu kulanu reshus achas. We're all one big happy family. It all belongs to us. Collectively, we're all sharing in this food and in this place. You're not going to come to make a mistake. And to compare now that I have an Erev Chatzeros in place, I'll know why I have an Erev Chatzeros in place, because really I can't walk from Shach Rabim. Here is semi-public. Because maybe I'm going to get confused, I make this Erev Chatzerot. And this helps everybody know that there's a place that's an Erev and there's a place that there's not an Erev, and I have to be careful and make sure semi-public, public, and all this. Some kids, if you just think about it right now, some kids who grew up in a community with an Erev from the start, they don't even know you're not allowed to carry on Shabbos. They don't even know there's an Erev there. They don't even know what an Erev is. They just know I'm allowed to walk outside on Shabbos. The Rambam says the whole idea why Shlomo HaMelech made Erev Chatzerot was for people to realize you're really not allowed to walk from Rabim, and you're not allowed to carry. Therefore, I have to make this distinction. Now, the Rambam says further, and we're on source number 4 on page 336. Now, there's actually two parts. There is Erev Chatzerot, that is between the houses, and then there's something that's known as a shituf, okay, shituf mavor, which is basically the alleyways. So you have the courtyards that are in front of the houses, and then you have the alleyways. And you might have to make two Erevs. One is an Erev Chatzerot for between the two houses, and one is Shituf Mevot. But you could do it in one way, and that's what we do. We do one, and it covers everything. How do you do it? So let's take a look. Ha'erev she'osim b'nei chatzer zeh zeh hu nikra Eruvei Chatzerot. This is Erev Chatzerot. V'she'osin anshei mavoi zeh im zeh o kol b'nei ha'medina hu ha'nikra Shituf. This is a Shituf. So when we make the Erev, if you make an Erev of Tzuras to Pesach, and we're covering this community, the Maisa, the Rambam saying that's called a Shituf, right? Because Erev Chatzeros is when you walk into the Chatzer. If you're doing a Medina or you're doing the Mavot, this is a Shituf. Ein ma'arvim b'chatzerot elo b'pat. Shalema. Bilvad. The Shituf, bein b'pat, bein b'shar oichlim. So if I'm making an Erev Chatzerot, right, I have to use bread. I use a full bread. We'll see how much soon. And if I'm making a shituf mev'o, all I need is some food that goes with bread. Now, hamishta tifin b'mavoy tzrichem le'erev b'chatzerot, right? Le'erev b'chatzerot. If you're making a shituf mavoy with other food, you have to also make erev chatzerot. K'dei shelo shachach hatinakot torat eruv. Why? Because you don't want the children to forget that the whole reason why we're allowed to carry is because it's an erev, is it semi-public, semi-private, always thing. Sharei ena hatinakot makirin ma naaseh b'mavoy. Nobody knows what's going on in the shituf mavoy. That's the alleyway. Lefikach im nishtatefu b'mavoy b'pat. Therefore, if I make a shituf mavoy with bread, somchim alav ve'en tzarchin la'arev b'chatzerot. Sharei hatinakot makirin b'pat. Because the kids will realize the bread. So it says in Rambam, if you make the shituf mav'o, you make the one for the Medina, for the alleyways with bread, that also includes the Erev Chatzerot. Then I can make one shituf mav'o and Erev Chatzerot in one if I'm using bread for both. But if I'm only making Erev Chatzerot on bread, then the shituf mav'o can be done on other food. But then I need two. So what do? We make one. We make on bread, okay? matzah in this context is going to be bread, okay? And going to be a reason why you want to use that. And that is the shituf mavod that we make, shituf mavod, erev chatzerot, and that's how you're allowed to carry in our erev. Just putting up a tzuras Pesach would not be enough to be able to carry. You have to make this part as well. And if you live in a place where there's no erev and you're in an apartment building, you have to make this erev chatzerot.
But I don't understand why you have to do two. If you make eruv chatzerot, why you have?
You don't have to make two.
Why you have?
If you make the shituf mavod with bread, it covers the erev chatzerot. If you're making the erev chatzerot only with bread and then the shituf mavod with food, with other foods, then it doesn't cover. The erev chatzerot cannot cover shituf mavod. But the shituf mavod can carry that. That's the takana. That's the way it is.
So what you saying?
That's the way the Chacham put it in.
You saying shituf mavod is stronger than shituf chatzerot?
So the Rambam says if what was the Rambam? K'dei shelo d'shachach hatinakot torat eruv, right? Because if I'm just making the shituf mavod with other food, kids are not going to realize the other food, and it's for the shituf mavod. So if I make it with bread, they're going to realize. Therefore, it works for everything. Right? Today, our kids know nothing about erev chatzerot. A lot of adults don't know about erev chatzerot. People don't know about erev at all. The kids don't know that, and so we have a lot of educational work to do according to the Rambam, so everybody knows what's really going on. Now, so like Rabbi Chaim said, typically shituf mevaot today is set up for each neighborhood that is surrounded by a community erev using matzot. This avoids the need for separate erev chatzerot, and the same matzot can be used for many Shabbatot. Yeah, and the matzah can also be used for Pesach.
No, matzah, it also stays.
It's long lasting. It's kosher Pesach. Because otherwise, I would have to keep making. I would have to keep making erev chatzerot to keep making shituf mavot, and you don't want to keep doing that. Yeah, you could go for longer. Okay, so says the Orchot Shabbat. Kshem she'eruv chatzerot me'echad. It called diru habatim shebechatzim me'ached. It makes them all together.
Right.
All the inhabitants of the home in a courtyard. So too, a shituf mevaot also makes them all one in the mavoi. Now, how do you make a shituf? Hushenotel pat or shar ma'achelim shargilim leleped bahem. They use for the bread. Umezachotam. And you're zoich them. You get them for everybody else in the mavoi, and you umeniachotam ba'achat hachatzerot hapetachot lemavoi, and you put them in one of the houses in this mavoi. And now it's mutter to carry in between all. So that's what you're doing. Then he writes, how do you do it? How do you do the shituf mevaot? You do it al yidei zikui. What is basically you're carrying, I'm carrying. So who made the shituf mevaot for me? How do I get involved with everybody? So we do transferring ownership. And this is you could be zoiche for Adam loy b'fanav if it's something good for him, right? Yeah. And it's good for him, right? Because he can carry now. Right. So what happened? This is what he says you do. Transferring ownership of the bread to all the users of the alleyway should give the bread to a person who will acquire on behalf of all the users of the alleyway. So two people are going to be there. So the rabbi, the other rabbi, the rabbi, and the person's tired, and he's going to say, "Here, you take the bread." Now, after giving him the bread, the person raises the bread in order to acquire it. He's doing hagba, right? He's lifting it, and that's a kinyan. He's cutting it now, and in order to acquire for everybody, the person who gives over the bread now, and the guy who gives it, before he picks it up, he makes the bracha al mitzvat eruv, and after acquiring it, he should recite the following text: Bahadin eruva hayashar elana la'afuke v'lehulei, right? Similar to the erev tavshilim that we make. That we say now you can carry and do stuff. Mina batim lechatzim, mina chatzim lebatim, mebayit lebayit, mechatzim lechatzim, megay legay, mebatim lechatzoros, mechatzos lemavoi, umemavoi lecholavatim, mechatzos shemavoi zeh. Right? Vim oisa shituf the ear shalema omer should be erzo, right? Sherzu v'lechol adayrim b'mavoi zeh, v'lechol mishit sofba. And anyone's going to come later on. We basically make a statement that everybody here now, everybody in the future, we're being zeicher for them this bread. They're all part of this erev chatzerot, the shituf mevaot, and now a person can carry in this area.
The difference if the owner of the apartment building is because they one owner is just renting it out to people, or
We're going to get to that. That's we're going to get to that. There's some Rav Moshe over there that makes it maybe you don't need to have an Erev Chatzeirot in an apartment building. Possibly. We'll take a look. Tfisas Yad, he has something in everyone's apartment. All right, we'll take a look. We're going to get there. We're going to get there if we can get through the sugya. Okay. So he says the same thing with Shita Mifavot, right? Same thing. Giving over beds to the habit. And where do you keep it? Of a note to nota bebet hakneset, says the Orchot Shabbat. Not everybody agrees with that. Not everybody agrees that it should be in a shul. Some say it should actually be in a house. So, but you said it was in the shul, right?
Why? The shul is the best, but why in the house?
Because some say it has to be dafka. Some say it has to be dafka in a house.
Tell you why in the shul? Because everybody has the
access to it, right?
Access to the shul. He knows the code. He goes in, and that's it.
You're right. But there are those who say that it has to be in the house. That
really that you're given an access.
Right. Because now you're all one. Now you're all one.
It's obvious.
Everyone already is one in the shul. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, that's why people do it. They put it in the shul, and it's for many Shabbatot. And the usually performed with matzot, the kosher Pesach. We talked about everything. Okay. Now, that's you have to do to make Erev Chatzot in order to carry in this Erev. You have to make another one. But
I think they put it in the place.
I don't know. I don't know if it gets lost. I don't know.
It's on top of the whole books.
What's the point?
Point it should be there.
Should be there. Okay. Now, how much bread do I need to make this Erev Chatzeirot? Right?
Not much.
It should be something. I mean, if you're saying it for everybody. Okay, so the Mishnah says, the Mishnah Eruvin says, Ma'hu shiurin. What is this here? Bisman shehen mirubin. When there are a lot, mazon shtei seudat lekulam. You have to have two seudot. A measurement for two seudos.
Maybe when you have
Bisman shehen muatin, when they're a little bit, higogerot lechol echad ve'echad. Then you only need the grogerot, a dried fig amount for each one. So Gemara wants to know how much is a merubin. Some Yehuda and Shmuel, Shmona Asr v'Nehada, 18 people. Gemara says 18 people and that's it. That's already a lot. No, Shmona Asr v'Elech, 18 and more. Anything 18 and more is considered a lot, and you need two seudot for that. Umay Shmona Asr v'Nakat, choosing 18. Okay, so it basically goes that if you have 18, so basically in the end, if you have less than 18 people, you need a grogerot for each person, dried fig bulk for each person. 18 grogerot is the amount for two seudot. So once you have two seudot, you don't need to put any more, even if it's more than 18 people, even if there is 1,000 people. Okay, even if there's 2,000 people, you need two seudot, which is 18 grogerot. Question is, how much is 18 grogerot? We don't really have dried fig. So what is it? The Shulchan Aruch tells us. If they're more than 18, afilu heim elef or yoter, even if they're 1,000 or more, shiro mazon shtei seudot. You need two seudot to make this Erev Chatzeirot, this Erev Shituf Mavot. Shehem shmona eser grogerot, because that is 18 grogerot. Shehem kishisha betzim, v'yesh omrim shehem kishmona betzim. So between 6 and 8 eggs. Okay? We have eggs today. Okay? Shulchan Aruch says we go with eggs. Mishnah Berurah says that 8 eggs is around 13.5 fluid ounces. Turns out to be 400 cc. And b'diavad, you can use 6, which is 10.1 fluid ounces. So 300 cc's. That's how much bread you need. Okay? So 8 eggs worth, and the Chatchil says, Mishnah Berurah, time to put 8 of the avad, dai kishisha beitzim. When you have 6, that is also enough for the avad. So you want to use 8 eggs volumes worth of bread. So a box of matzos is definitely, I would assume,
over.
Right, it's over. Right, so that would work. So that is the basic understanding of Erev Chatzeirot and Shituf Mavot. So this is an essential piece in order to make an Eruv work. Okay, in order to carry in an Eruv, you need to have this Eruvin.
You don't have it every place.
And if you don't have it, then you can't carry it.
I don't know if out of town.
No, they know. If they have any Rabbanim there, they know. And if they have Rabbanim will put up an Eruv, usually there's a community, someone puts up an Eruv, they bring people in, these people know about Eruv Chatzeirot, and they make sure it goes up. Okay. Let's just see if anything else to add here.
Jewish community, because they don't want Jews to move in, so they fight the Eruv.
By the way, it's
not the Goyim, by the way.
Also, the
studies show no over and over.
The Yehudim, the secular Yehudim.
Jews that don't want this happening here. They
They don't want Haredim to move in.
What's up? That in what's it called? They moved back. No.
West Hampstead.
West Hampstead. When the religious Jews started coming in, they didn't want to put the Eruv down because they didn't want more religious Jews to come in.
The woman doesn't care.
Don't even know what an Eruv is. Like what's it called? The Daily Show with Jon Stewart years ago had a whole show on it. Like he's like it's gonna ruin the look, and it's like you see it, and he said before and after. There's no difference. Then he closes it in. It's like a little string. He's like, you see how it messes up the whole neighborhood. And this is what they really worry about. So the bunch of Hasidim walking around.
So there's just a few more side notes I want to put in. There is a halacha that says that the place where you're going to keep the Eruv Chatzeirot, the food, has to be at a minimum 4x4 amot. You have to have a 4x4 amot place. So you can't just put it in a closet. Right? It has to be in the place that's 4x4 amot. The Ramah says it's usually kept in the shul, but there are others who bring down that it should be kept in a home. In a home, right. Okay, that is on that. Let me see if there's anything else I have to add on this part. It's 74 to 178. I know.
Be accessible.
Yeah, we want it to be accessible.
אבל תגיד לי, אם תשים את זה בבית, לא כל אחד יכול להיכנס לתוך הבית. כל אחד יכול להיכנס לתוך הבית.
אני מסתכל על ההלכה כאילו שאתה עושה הלכה ובונה אותה כדי שתהיה לך סל, נכון? עכשיו אתה לוקח את הסלד הזה, מניח לי אותו על ההיכל. את הקופסה של המצה.
Okay.
לא שם בית.
I remember there was a case like that.
שמים בהולווי. שמים בהולווי.
And the Eruv that they set aside. Usually they do a basmata last a long time.
And the guy ate it?
And somebody came like and we just ate it. Like they probably like what happened? Somebody ate it. It was a big problem.
But that's
So
that somebody needs to take it. That's in order to have the razma.
הוא צריך להגיד לאנשים,
just on the point of making the bracha for the Eruv Chatzeirot, what point is it done at? So you give the person, the rabbi, whoever's doing it, gives it to the person who's going to acquire it for everybody else. That person lifts it up, and at that point, and then the matzah says right. It's right after the agent receives the matzah, before he lifts it up. So the person receives the matzot, right? I'm giving you the matzah. Be kona it for everybody, right? And you could be zachin la'adam shelo lefanav. So you take it before you lift it. I make the bracha. Then you lift it. That's when I say bahadin eruvav. With this eruv, we can do this, this, and that. That's the process to making the eruv. Okay, so that clarifies that. Now let's move on to another section. So
we got two Eruvim, right? Adjacent. Yeah, one in St. Bayswater, another one, or let's say one in Woodmere, one in Cedarhurst. And each one has its own Eruv, its own pot or whatever it is. Can you go from one domain to another?
Rami shaking, saying no.
Why not? If they are very, very close, like this you put, so what is to go from here to here?
I mean, let's put it this way. What an Eruv, the way I understand it.
But if both Eruv are Rosh Hashanah, like I go from one Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah,
right?
Unless they make it all one big shituf, one big.
So that's a different question. That's fine, right? But over here, it's like the way I understand the whole thing. You're basically making one house, right? One big beautiful house.
Right. One big happy family.
Yeah, have one house here and one house here. They're right next to each other. So the you can't go from one house to the other.
Unless you combine them both.
Exactly. Most of the time, I would imagine if they're right next to each other, they probably.
I would have to assume that the 5 towns between each community has to have.
No, Barakaway has their own, and then the Lawrence has their own. So what? People from Farakaway, they don't go. They go.
So I'm saying, so they probably do an Erev Chatzerot that connects everything.
But they won't go under. יש לך מעבר, זה באנדר. בוא נגיד לא עצה בנדיה, נגיד לורנס לסידר. מה, אנשים לא עוברים? לא הולכים לבקר את החברים שלהם פה ושם? אז אם יש לכל אחד עירוב, הוא אומר שאסור, אז איך עושים את זה? לא חושב שזה אסור.
He's like saying right now, the latest announcement he made. He's like, I'm not saying you can't carry in the Eruv. I'm saying there is no Eruv right now, so therefore you can't carry. Like, let me fix up the Eruv, then you guys can carry.
Okay. No, I did not hear. I did not hear. But let's continue, Abutai. All right. Our next issue is we can all be one big happy family if we're all religious Jews. But if you throw a guy into the mix, or better yet, you throw someone who doesn't believe, a Jew who doesn't believe in Eruv, doesn't believe in the Rabbanan, Shlomo HaMelech said to make Eruv, and he is, against it or whatever.
He's not part of the family.
He's not part of the family. So can I create this Erev Chatzeirot, or does he
says,
or does he disqualify it?
It's also
so says the Mishnah,
it's a
Ada im anachi b'chatzer,
machloket.
or im mi she'enu modeh be'eruv, he doesn't believe in this. Harei ze oser alav. That's it. You can't carry there. You can't make Erev Chatzeirot. There's a guy there. So obviously we carry. So there's got to be a way. Okay. Eliezer ben Yaakov Aimer Lo'olam Eno Oseh Ad Sheyu Shnei Yisraelim Asurin Ze Al Ze. Only time that if a Jew is with a guy in the same place, right, and say the same chatzer, it's only if there's 2 Jews, right? So and a guy. If there's one Jew and everyone else is goyim, then you don't need Erev Chatzerot. Okay. So Rabbi Rosner says that he once got a question. This guy went on vacation in Europe. He's in this apartment, wherever they are, and there's an enclosed yard, and this apartment is enclosed. He wants to know if he can carry there, how he's making Erev Chatzerot, what should he do? And Rabbi Rosner said to him, his question was to him, was there any other Jews besides you in this apartment? He says, no, there's no one else that, to his knowledge, that no one else is Jewish. If no one else is Jewish, you don't need to make Erev Chatzerot, and you can carry in that apartment building and in that place because there's no one else but him. So it's only when there's 2 Jews and Gaim. Yeah, the enclosure is a Rishus Yachid. It's a Rishus Yachid.
I go by myself.
You go by yourself. No Jews. Just no Jews. Okay. So what's going on here? First of all, why 2 Jews and not 1 Jew with a bunch of Gaim? Why no Chatzerot over there? So says the Gemara in Masechet Eruvin, the Kulei Alma Dirat Nachri Lo Shema Dira. The place of a Nachri's dwelling is not considered a dwelling. It really should not biblically affect us at all. The Hacha B'Gzeira, the whole reason is Shilo Yilamid B'Ma'asav. The reason is we don't want to learn from the Goyim. Therefore, we don't want you to live with them. And therefore, you're living with them, we're going to make it asur for you to carry there. Move out of there. Move into a Jewish neighborhood. Then you can make your Erev Chatzerot, you can make. But if you're going to live with a Goy, the guy is not going to allow you to make that Erev Chatzerot is asur for you. Why 2 Jews and not 1? So Yaakov says that when you have 1, chad lo shchiach, usually 1 Jew does not live with 1,000,000 goyim, right? It's not a davar shchiach, it's not something that happened. So no gezerah. If you're 1 Jew who lives with 1,000,000 goyim, you don't make Erev Chatzerot. But if it's already 2, okay, now we have problems. Now you guys are too close, right? And now we need you to move out of there. Therefore, now the guy is asuring you. So the idea is, we don't want to live near the goyim. So the Chachamim said, if you're going to be with a guy, you cannot make an Erev Chatzerot. It becomes asur. You cannot make any Erev. So what can we do? V'amar Rabbanan, ein Eruv mo'el b'makom nachri. You cannot make an Erev makom nachri. Ve'ein bitul reshut mo'el b'makom nachri. And also, he cannot say, the guy can say, oh, I'm giving up my place. No. Ad. Till when? What does he have to do? He has to rent out the place. Okay? If he can rent it from the guy, exactly what does it mean, rent? It's a halachic symbolic renting.
The Gemara talks about it.
Yeah,
Eruvin.
that he is renting it from the guy. You're renting rights to walk in that area. Okay, so you have to be able to rent it from the guy to walk in that chatzer, that area, and now you can make Erev Chatzeirot if you rent from them. And says the same thing, Masechet Eruvin, about a Yisrael that is a apostate, right? He doesn't keep the Shabbat. If he's Mishaber Shabbat B'shuk, if he keeps Shabbat in public, meaning people see him, he doesn't open his car, he doesn't talk on his cell phone, he's not lighting fires before Hesyam. Mevatel Reshut. Then he can say, this Reshut is not mine. You can make Erev Chatzeirot. But if he doesn't keep Shabbat in public, and Mevatel Reshut. Mishaber Yisrael, Notel Reshut, Noten Reshut, Ubenachri, Ashisach. Until you rent it out from a Nachri. So, if you have a Jew who doesn't keep Shabbat before Hesyam, or you have a Nachri who lives in that area, the only way to make an Erev Chatzeirot is to rent it from them. It says in Shulchan Aruch, if you live with the guy b'chatzer, right? Hadar ima guy b'chatzer eno asar alav achu shnei Yisraelim. Right? Only two Jews can mess it up for each other with the guy. The darn b'shnei batim, right? They live in two houses, but each one has their own private house. V'oishim ze'al azar guy asar aleim. The animal el shivatel hagay reshud, but you have to rent it from the guy instead. And same thing in source 14, a Jew that is what's it called? Shumad la'avodat elilim or l'chalel shabbat b'farhesia. Even if he's doing the rabbanan, but he is mechal shabbat b'farhesia, he's considered like a guy and can't make erev chatzirot until you rent it from him. Now, practically speaking, can you go over to every guy and knock on his door and tell him, "Here's $1. I'd like to rent the rights, to walk in the street, walk in front of your house or whatever it is." We really, it's very not practical, and not everyone would agree. It's just not practical. So what's the way around? How do you? Right. So let's take a look. Shulchan Aruch says, right. So he goes. You have these things. You have to rent from them. The Madar Amurim, that what? That right? That of the makom shekol tzarchi ha'er enasim ela pi hasar, or this person in charge. He has certain reshut lahoshev anashav echlei melachto bebatei bnei ha'er b'shat milchama, right? Shlom datam. Then you can rent it from him. So says Shulchan Aruch, if the mayor is just a mayor in, ceremonial mayor, and he has no powers to go into your house and take over your house, then you can't rent from him. But if he's a mayor or someone is the head of the city or head of the country, whatever it is, and he can get in to your house and take it over, right? And put people inside, quarter soldiers, which I think the Constitution says he can't court soldiers, right? Which makes it problematic. If technically they can come in and put stuff in your house and use your house and kick you out, so then it's all theirs, and then you can rent from them. Okay? So now, what about nowadays? So the Orchot Shabbat says, it's kasher me'oid. So Paiskim says, you take it from the person in charge. That has permission to go in, from the Shilton, that they have permission to go in. They can go in and do what they have to do. And that's what they do, Ba'arim Gidalot, the score, Etrushiot and Ochrim, Machalei Shabbat, from the head of the city. And then he puts in Tzadik Dal in 342, what does he say? Some of the authorities of our generation, they are worried about this. Why? Because our government officials, they really don't have any right to go into our house. Right? The police can't just come in. They need a search warrant. It's not that easy to just come in. So maybe these authorities that you want to rent from really don't have that ability to go into the Shulchan Aruch says to put soldiers in your house and to bring weapons into your house and to use your house. And it's not that simple to do that in democratic countries to do that. So it might be problematic. Rosh Levi is also lenient with this in his Nuhat Ahava. He says you could rent from the civil defense commander, even the prime minister doesn't have a right to go in, but maybe the people in charge of the war can. So there's different ideas. And then he writes in the end, the 343, in top of the page, even in our times, the Ministry of Defense and Civil Defense commanders have the authority to obligate the citizens of the state to store army equipment in their houses. In the note he wants to bring, and he's talking in Israel right now, and he says in note 11 that after October 7th, and many residents near Gaza and northern borders were evacuated from their homes for extended periods. Their properties were used by the military for emergency purposes. So it shows you the government can still take over houses, and therefore you can rent from the head of the government. Now, in the gray matter, this is Rabbi Chaim Jafter, and we have his paper right over here. He says that there are many that are makel and say, listen, you could borrow it. And he brings down the eminent domain. That eminent domain is basically the government can decide that they need your property for whatever reason, and right, to build a road for pirates together, right? They need to go through or whatever it is, and they can take it technically. No. So
if you don't pay your property taxes, what happens?
Can they come in there?
If you don't pay your property taxes, what happens?
But can they come in there?
Yeah. Yes.
No. It's my property. I have no problem right now.
If you don't pay property taxes, what happens? The government takes it away. It's not really yours.
I hear you. Rav Hershel Schachter from Yeshiva Rabbeinu Tilchanan, he says, listen, don't give me eminent domain because the government hardly ever uses it. So it's not a power that's usable. That's what he says. Interesting enough, we have a few minutes in the let me just see which page I have this on. 169. No, laws of air.
The point of property taxes is the point is that the government has the power to put a tax on your house, and if you don't pay that tax, they take away that house. That means not really your house.
Okay. So in this sefer over here,
at least the last 50 years.
He brings down Rav Elyashiv. This is another sefer of Rav Jafter. Rav Jafter is a Rav in Teaneck for a Sephardic community. Jafter. He has many beautiful Svarim. And he has videos also on how to make an Eruv and stuff like that. Anyway, he's a big bucky in Eruvin and other stuff. But he writes over here, Yosef Shalom Elyashiv also questioned the validity of community-wide Tzurba Reshut in a democracy, and said it's very problematic. But on the other hand, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, in his Tshuvas Har Tzvi, says no, in a democracy it's even better than a totalitarian regime. Why? Because what's a democracy? It's of the people, by the people, for the people. So if it's of the people, by the people, for the people, then if the representative is renting it, he is renting it out. He's for the people, by the people. I'm just saying what he said.
The form of government and the rules by which the government governs itself. In America, you have a democracy, but that's not what makes it. It's also a democracy. It has nothing to do with anything. The key is how they treat right to property. In America, one of the key pursuit to happiness, pursuit of happiness is considered property right. You're supposed to have full property right. The main reason we see that's not the case is property right. That was the whole Supreme Court case on that.
But I don't see anyone bringing down their property tax.
That wasn't the spy.
I hear you. Interesting. He writes here another interesting idea of Jafter. He says, it's very true that the government can rent out. He says, like, you rent out let's say the government's in charge, you can put stuff in. He says, but what about if in the city or the community you live, there's a foreign embassy, right? If there's a foreign embassy, the host government has no real charge over that.
No, that's fake.
They don't. It's foreign territory. They can't come in. The police can't come in.
In a war.
No, there's a difference between an embassy and a consulate. The consulate, police can go in. But in an embassy, it's literally considered foreign territory, and you can't go in there. So Rajafter says this would be a big problem, and he brings over here. Yeah, we don't have an embassy, right? That's good. I saw an interesting case over here. He brought. I don't know where I saw this right now. Give me a second. But here he brings down that in September of 2009, Gaddafi visited New York. Okay, and he was staying by the Libyan ambassador to the United Nations, who was living in Englewood, New Jersey,
I remember.
and an Orthodox Jewish community with an Arab. Okay, and now they used to not include the embassy because you can exclude certain parts in an Arab if it had certain they had a gate and stuff like that, and they excluded it. But before Gaddafi came, they renovated the whole area and they took off the gates. So now it was back in the area of the Eruv. So Rav Willig informed Rav Jachter that he had consulted with Professor Louis Henkin, son of the great Posek Yosef Eliyahu Henkin, a renowned expert in international law. And Professor Henkin explained that foreign embassies are not technically defined as foreign territory, like Ami was saying. Under normal circumstances, local authorities grant embassies a great deal of autonomy as a courtesy. Thus, police would not usually enter a foreign embassy. However, in a case of serious emergency, such as fire, local officials do enter an embassy, even if the foreign representatives protest such entrance. Local authorities would not be able to do so if the embassy area was truly foreign territory. So, like Rav Ami wanted to say that no, even though we treat it as foreign territory, but technically, says this professor, it's not foreign territory, and at some point in an emergency, our local people would be able to come in. So therefore, the local governments could rent out that area, and the embassy in Englewood would remain, the area would remain valid. Okay, so that's an interesting case. He brings here other ideas. He says he knows that certain person was trying to make an Eruv in America. Rabbi Barry, he brings over from Kesher Israel, that he established, and during this time, he went to President George Bush and rented from him the ability to make an Eruv. I don't know. I think so. That's I think what he was trying to say here. Right. So there are back and forth stuff going on over here. Well, it's not as simple a simple matter when it comes to Schirat Reshut and how it should happen. Just here they bring a story of Tzvi Lieberman who rented from the Queen of England in order to make an Eruv in England. There was something about the Satmar Rebbe I saw earlier also here, but now I can't find it. Maybe we'll see it later. All right, let's move on to the next issue. So when you have a guy or you have a non-firm Jew, you would have to rent from them. We can't rent from every single one of them. We rent from local authorities. And the halacha is, by Dina Eruv, we go with the one who's more mekel. So even though there are those who say you can't, we always go with the ones who are mekel for dinim of an Eruv. Now, the last case that we have to deal with tonight is communal housing. Okay? So a hotel, a hospital, dormitories, okay, schools, stuff like this. They're communal housing. And let's say they're not within an actual Eruv. All right, and there's no Eruv Chatzeirot. Do I still have to make an Eruv Chatzeirot? I'm going to the hospital, right? Let's say someone has to go to the hospital. Someone's in a hotel for Shabbat. Do they have to make Eruv Chatzeirot or not? So, the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata tells us, hospital, hotel, nursing home, military base, where the place is managed by a single Jew or his employees, and they're there. If all the residents eat Shabbat meals provided by the owner or prepared in one communal kitchen, then you're not going to need an Eruv Chatzeirot. If somehow you could connect them all, they're all eating in the same dining room, they're all eating from the same kitchen, they're all from the same place, then you can connect them all. And say you don't need Eruv Chatzeirot, they're all one happy family, they're all eating from one kitchen, you don't need to have an Eruv Chatzeirot. Then in the building or fence area where no resident eats, on page 344, and everyone eats in their own rooms, so then you'll not be able to carry unless you make Eruv Chatzeirot. So if you go to hotels where not everyone's eating in a communal dining room, or they have multiple dining rooms, or everyone's eating in their own room, so you're going to need to have an Eruv Chatzeirot over there, according to the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata. So eating or having your food come from the one place would combine us all. We don't need Eruv Chatzeirot, but if that doesn't exist, you will need an Eruv Chatzeirot. Continues the Ochot Shabbat now, and he says, regarding guests in a hotel, At first glance, it would seem that if they all eat in one dining room, right, then it's okay. But then he says, maybe no. Maybe even if they eat in the dining room, their real place of residence is their private hotel room. And then you wouldn't need Erev Chatzeirot. But then he writes, if all the bread is in one place at twilight, when Shabbat comes in, maybe you could combine them all. And that's what he wants to say over here. Orchat Shabbat on page 346 says, let's say there's a guy there, or a non-religious Jew, also staying in the hotel. So then you have to make Erev Chatzeirot, and you'll have to rent the Reshut, Sirat Reshut, from someone at the hotel. In general, the hotel management has the, okay, so now here comes the other one. This is the big kula, is the kula of the Igros Moshe, or Moshe Feinstein, of how to say the whole hotel, the whole hospital, doesn't need Erev Chatzeirot, even if there are goyim there, even if no one's eating from the same place, everyone's in their own room. Why would I still not need to make Erev Chatzeirot in this place? So says Rav Moshe as follows. There's something called Tfisat Yad. What is it, Tfisat Yad? We'll explain the word Tfisat Yad. He has a hold there, right? What's the hold? It's clear and obvious that even if one has permission to place only a single item, such as a plow peg, it's still considered Tfisat Yad. Even rented items are regarded as the owner's Tfisat Yad. Even though you can use it and stuff like that, it's still considered the owner's. So Moshe's Kiddush is, each hotel room has furniture that belongs to the hotel. So the owner really owns the whole thing. So it's all one place, all belongs to one. Right. So therefore, if Moshe wants to say with Tfisat Yad, if the owner is in each room, then you don't need Erev Chatzeirot. It's all one. And you're not going to need any Erev Chatzeirot at all because you have this Tfisat Yad. Not everybody agrees with Rav Moshe. Some say that once the person can already use it, and Tfisat Yad is if I have something there that you can't use it. Some want to say, right? I have something in your room and you can't use it. But if you're using it, then it's not enough of Tfisat Yad. Rav Moshe says you can. He's saying if you break it, I have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's not your. I'm letting you borrow this, but there's limitations on how you use it.
Right. Maybe that's what Moshe is going with. So others say no. If you can use it, then it's not. It's yours and not his. Anyway, in the end of the day, here's from the start care, Mordechai Frankel, on source 23. Right, source 23. Because I want to go through the walking the line, a few topics here, and this idea as well. All agree that Erev Chatzeirot is not needed if, to the best of one's knowledge, there is only one Jewish family in the hotel. Okay? So remember, if it's you versus the world, and there's no other Jews there, you don't need Erev Chatzeirot if you're in a Reshus Yachid. You're in an apartment building, you're in a hotel, you're somewhere. There's only one Jewish family, and everyone else is goyim. I don't need Erev Chatzeirot. Okay? Right. Avoid the Jews. Okay. Once you have a second Jew, now you need Erev Chatzeirot. Furthermore, all agree that Erev Chatzeirot is not necessary if all the Jewish families in the hotel will be eating all the Shabbat meals together. If they're all eating in the same dining room, they're all one, you don't need Erev Chatzeirot. However, if there are two or more Jewish families in a hotel and the families will not be eating meals together, now there's a discussion amongst the poskim whether any Erev Chatzeirot or not. Rav Moshe Paskin, Erev Chatzeirot is still not needed because the whole hotel is owned by one person or group of people who owns the furniture in each room and has the right to enter the room. That's even though some of the rooms in the hotel have been rented by Jews, all the rooms are considered under control of the non-Jew who owns the hotel. That's what Moshe says. So at Tfisat Yad, you don't need Erev Chatzeirot. The Dvar Avram disagrees and feels that an Erev Chatzeirot should be made. In order to do this, one would need to rent the rights to the hallways from the owner. The owner is not present, but you can rent it from any of the employees. You can go to the concierge at the front desk and tell him, I want to rent the hallway space. So he tells you how to do it. Mordechai Frankel tells you what to do. Go over to the concierge, right, and give him a doll. Tell him, I want to rent the hallways for the right to carry them during the Shabbat. And you can tell him, by the way, me renting it will not affect anyone else in any way at all. It's just necessary for Jewish law. And you give him the dollar, you've now rented the rights, and you can make Erev Chatzeirot. You take your matzah box or whatever it is, and you make your Erev Chatzeirot, and you are good. And that's the way you have. That's the way you should do it. You should be machmir.
It's not
Okay.
always possible.
Everybody said. So he says, yeah, everything's there. And it's not a situation.
Before the Eruv, not the Eruv, but everyone grew up there. No one did the Eruv on the book. I'm saying
It's saying because the management had refrigerators in everyone's thing, the ovens and all the other things.
You couldn't just hold the wall.
Right. So there's a tfisat yad in all those apartment buildings. Right. According to Moshe, that would work. Others said you would need. So Rav Jachter in his beautiful sefer again, Walking the Line, he goes through some of the issues over here. He says the same thing with the hospital. Since the hospital stores a lot of equipment in each person's room, right? So therefore, there's tfisat yad there, and therefore you wouldn't need to make an erev chatzerot if you're staying in the hospital and there's no community area with an erev chatzerot there. You don't have to make another one. He had someone once ask him. He said, "Listen, I'm in a hospital where there is an erev around the hospital, around the community, but I don't hold the erev, right? So do I need to make an erev chatzerot in the hospital? So no, if you call it tfisat yad, you don't need."
I have a question about all this.
Yeah.
What's the question?
What is it?
Shlomo Amelech, he make the Eruv.
Yeah.
And we say because he wants the kids to know not to go from one place to another place,
right.
To know what's the difference.
Right. That's what Rambam says.
So what is the kids to do now with the building?
Yeah, now that's a question is you have to have an erev chatzerot. So you need to have erev chatzerot. Another way out is if, like you say, that you really don't have any ownership in that place at all. So sometimes you think a hotel, I rented the room, right? Sometimes they can come and kick you out of that room. People think, I get this all the time with patients in the hospital. They come, they get a room, and they say, hey, I tell them, oh, we have to move you. Oh, I'm not moving. You're not moving? Watch me move you. You can't stay here. If I need to move you, I'll move you. I try not to move a patient, but at the end of the day, you have nothing there. You're not really there. Okay? You'll be surprised how many patients think they can put up a fight that I'm not moving. Okay? By the way, if you put up a fight, they might not move you because they'll go to someone else who's easier to move. But sometimes you have no choice but to move them. It's just depending on what it is. Okay, there are different. Yes, so they can kick you out. Some say that's enough. The host is providing you food. Another way to not need erev chatzerot. Rav Tzvi Sobolevsky says that a residence not of one's choice, right? If one resides in a place against one's will, it's not considered a residence. So most people in the hospital don't want to be there, right? So you don't have chatzerot. So the community area we talked about. If they're against their will, yeah. Again, halacha kedibra hamekel be'erev. So anything can be added as a tziruf to allow. Say again. Right. So you're eating the same dining room, but sometimes you have people not eating in the same dining room, right? Rav Shachter from YU, he says Rav Yosef Dar Soloveitchik said that you do need erev chatzerot in YU's dorm. Didn't hold the Rav Moshe's leniency. Didn't hold these other things and said you should make erev chatzerot there.
Today, Yeshiva University, they have erev chatzerot? That's the question.
But Shachter says no, but it says Yosef wanted them to have. Right. All right, so there are different ideas. I think the main idea of this lesson, I mean, we learned how to make erev chatzerot. We learned about it. I think a very important thing is in the next Shabbat time that you sit down with your kids, bring up this discussion of erev chatzerot. Explain to them that there's more. That first of all, explain to them that there's an erev with Tzuras of Pesach around where we live, because most of them don't even know that. And then explain to them that even if you have that, you still need to have erev chatzerot, so they become knowledgeable in the halachot. And that's why Shlomo Melech put it. So we should become familiar that you can't just walk in from any public to private place. And you have to do certain things to mitak in them to be able to keep the Kedusha Shabbos.
The problem deal with the Eruv. And they all grew up carrying in Brooklyn. They all live in Brooklyn. They all carry, and then they would go to deal, and there's no Eruv at all.
Right. And they can.
They didn't know what an Eruv.
Exactly. I tell you, the first a couple of years ago, when we moved here, my kids were a little older. I explained to them, we already were using the Eruv a year or two, and I explained to them that there's an Eruv here. They were shocked. Eruv, what's Eruv? Where it is, what it is. So I walked around with them. I showed them there's a string here and there's a string there. You see it says Ad Kana Eruv. Be careful over here. I have to explain it to them. They really had no idea.
I'll tell you what I do with practice. When we go to Brooklyn, we go outside.
Can't walk.
Wait a second, man.
Okay, all the time. Very good. So next time we'll get into Eruv Tachumen. All right. Rabbi Hanuk Shalom. Tzad Kodesh Baruch Hu. Tchumen. Tchum. Rabbi Hanuk Shalom. Tzad Kodesh Baruch Hu Zakoi Yisrael. לפיכך חיבה מתור מצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.